Hi, we want to go through our very first objective about why do I have to take this government class? So before you even start, I want you to get out a sheet of paper, scrap paper, and write down everything you have done in the last 24 hours. And put down everything: sleeping, what you slept on, food, what you ate. Put down everything you have done. Okay, so go ahead and pause and write that down. Yes, pause it. Okay, hopefully you paused and you have a nice long list. Now, what I want you to do is put a star next to everything that government is involved in. Okay, so take some time to do that and pause. Now, as you look at your list, just put that to the side because we're going to be using that for our first objective today. So, as we work on our first objective, you also have notes that you can take digitally, or you can do them on your own on paper. But we have to explain why this class is a required class. I'm not sure if you know, but Iowa Code has only 2 classes listed by actual name of what a student has to take in order to graduate from an Iowa high school and get their diploma. It is a semester of American government and 1 year of American history. Now, Iowa Code has other things like you have to take so many years of math and science and things like that. But I think it's interesting that Iowa Code has those 2 classes as a required class that you have to take. So our American Heritage is our American history component. And of course, right now you are in government. So why did the state of Iowa and basically every other state make a semester of government mandatory in order for you to graduate? So, what I want you to do now is on that same sheet of paper, another sheet of paper, write down why you think the state says you have to take a government course. I know it's not to torture you, but write that down and pause. Okay, hopefully you have your list of why this class is a required class. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the reasoning behind why this is required. So one of the things that you might have thought about is going back to that bell ringer about all the things you do. There is nothing on your list that government has not touched in some way. We call that an all-pervading social force. So some of you said, I slept. Government has nothing to do with that. Well, I assume you probably slept on your mattress and you have those tags. That's government mandated. And all the things that we do for mattress safety and health. If you were under 12, you have federally mandated fire retardant pajamas. The food, that is heavily regulated by the FDA. Now, some of you might have put things like, illegal activities. That's still illegal because government says you can't do it. So go ahead and join our group chat and see if you can put something on there that government has nothing to do with. Because I guarantee government is in every aspect of your life. And if government is in every aspect of your life, an all-pervading social force, you're going to want to make sure you know what government is all about if they have everything to do with your life. The second reason why you're here is because government is a democracy. And what I wanted to share with you is there are several countries in the world. And what's kind of interesting, we go anywhere from 195 to 197 up to 234 different countries in the world. And you can read my slide there about why they vary so much. But if you look at those 200 countries, how many of them are democracies? Well, actually, this is a range of democracy. A lot of countries say they're democracies, and they're not. And the lighter red that a country is, that's more democratic. So you can look at this, and when it comes down to it, in reality, of those 200 countries, really what we consider about 10% are true, functioning, real democracies. Now we're going to be talking about types of government and what a pure democracy is, and that doesn't exist. There's a little bit in Switzerland with some of the districts and cantons there, but pretty well true democracy is not in its purest form in existence in the world. So one of the reasons why you're here is democracy is a very difficult type of government to run, even though everybody says democracy is the best type of government. And it is. I truly believe it is. If you've had your South American history and remember that, Simón Bolivar was the great liberator. This is a statue of Simón Bolivar outside of Washington, D.C.'s White House. And this is on the other side of the White House. And he went from South American country to South American country, liberating those countries from Spain. The thing is, some of those countries actually even took our constitution, translated it in Espanol. It didn't last. Why? Because they didn't understand what their citizen civic duties are to run a democracy. Now, you go, Mrs. Holt, that's a long, long time ago. Okay, well, when the Berlin Wall fell down, all of those former Soviet Union countries, many of them tried to be a democracy. Again, they couldn't do it because they didn't know how a democracy was supposed to run. Now, you might be going, Mrs. Holt, this is like ancient history. I wasn't even born. Well, sadly, I think most of you were born after the Afghan war as well. This is Afghanistan, and you can see they all have their purple fingers for voting democracy. That's one of the things that we think about. And again, Afghanistan, Iraq, they're very tenuous democracies because the citizens don't know what they're supposed to do to keep that democracy going. And yes, women did vote, but remember, culturally, men and women must be separated in those Muslim countries. So that purple dye signified that, yes, they did vote. So a democracy is something that's very, very difficult to run. Now, your civic duty is more than just voting. There's lots of things that you need to do as a citizen to make a good government. And so that's why we do CDs, and we're going to talk about that. So the CDs, your citizenship duties, are the things that you need to do to keep this democracy going and to make sure that our government is strong. You can't blame the leaders for a bad government because we, the people, had something to do with that. And like I said, there is more to being a good citizen and fulfilling our citizenship duties and knowing what we're supposed to do to keep this country going than just voting. So we're going to be looking at that as well as our citizenship duties. Now, one of the things is you probably said, I need to know how government works. Why? Because government's very complex. This is just a federal organizational chart of government, and it's crazy with how much is there. And then they took 3 departments, Defense, State, and Treasury. Yeah, you can't even read the complexity. That's just 3 of the 15 cabinets. So they're not all there. And then that's, when you think about the 3 branches, okay, and that's displayed in this chart on the federal level, well, we also have that federalism on state, county, city, township, district. That's all federalism. Those are all those separation of powers and branches. So you talk about the complexity. Think about the concept of parks and rec parks. Are there national parks? Yes. Can you name a national park? Okay, hopefully you got one. In case you couldn't, Yellowstone would be a national park. Are there state parks? Yes. Swan Lake is a state park. Prairie Rose over by Harlan is a state park. Who runs those? The state Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Are there county parks? Yes. Can you name one? Hopefully you said Yellow Smoke, Nelson's Park. Those are county parks run by our county DNR. Are there city parks? Can you name one? Okay, so just the complexity in parks alone. That's one of the reasons why you're here. Government is so complex. And so when you think about that and the 3 branches and the concept of federalism, and by the way, the United States developed federalism, that helps you understand why we're here. We have a very difficult system to understand how it works and how the parts and pieces and who's responsible for that in our federalism and the 3 branches. Now, one of the reasons why you're here is because our government is extremely expensive. Some of you probably have a job and you get your paycheck and you realize, whoa, I didn't think I was going to get this little. I thought I was going to get more. Well, that's because we have to pay a lot of taxes to run our system. So there's this thing called Tax Freedom Day. And last year, 2019, it was April 16th, which means if you look at the 365 days of the year, The first 105 days of everything you make goes to the government for all the different kinds of taxes. And if you look at the screen there, you can see all the different kinds of taxes: income taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, all different types of taxes. The remaining 200 some days, that's your money. Okay, so an easy way to think about it, let's say you make $100,000 a year. You can count on a good 30% of that 100,000 goes to the government. So that's what that means. 105, a third of it about, will go to the government for taxes. So you would pay 30,000 to the government out of that 100,000, and 70,000 is yours to spend. And so that's one of the reasons why you're here, because government is really expensive. I'm going to go ahead and take you to the US debt clock. And it's not letting me do it, but go ahead and click on the US debt clock, and it shows how much money the government is going through and how much money you as taxpayers have to pay. It's almost $200,000 per person in debt, in taxes we have to pay the government. So when people say, oh, I want free college tuition, well, it's not free. We have to pay that as taxpayers. Or I want medical care for all. That's not free. Now, you might want that. Maybe that's a great idea, but it has to be paid for. So how much money in taxes do you want to pay for all of this? Okay. Same thing in Denison, a rec center. That'd be pretty cool to have, but we have to pay for that. And so again, that is taxes. So why is this class required? Well, government isn't everything we do. Think about your list, and you can join the chat and see if you can find something that government has nothing to do with. Okay, that'll be a fun challenge. Ask your family, hey, can you think of something government has nothing to do with? Government's a democracy, and we know those democracies are very difficult to operate. You know, we've seen lots of examples in history where a democracy didn't make it because the citizens didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. Democracy, I believe, is the best form of government, but it is also the hardest form of government to run and to have because citizens must know their responsibilities. Third one, hey, we have to know what we're supposed to be doing as citizens to keep our democracy going. Our government is by the people, for the people. So if it's by the people, that means we have to be doing something. And so we're going to be looking at what our citizenship duties are. Governments are very complex. That's why you're here. So you're going to see all those parts and pieces and see how that complexity all fits together. And government's really expensive. Go ahead and click on that link for the debt clock, and I think you'll be shocked with all the information that's there. So this is our first objective. This is why we're here. This is why this is why it's a required course listed by the state in the coded law of Iowa that yes, every senior to graduate from an Iowa high school must pass an American government course. I want to make sure that you go and look at Canvas about the interview. The interview is for you to look at a career and see how government is involved in your future career. Also, another aspect is you need to look at CDs because, yeah, you've got to look at some citizenship duties, what you need to do. If you have any questions, post on chat or email me.